Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of the More Magic Book Club podcast. Today is a very fun episode because I have two extra special guests joining me to talk about books with gods and goddesses and mythology, and one of my absolute favorite subgenres in the fantasy space. So, if you've listened to some recent episodes, you've already heard slash met AJ Peterson, who has returned today. Welcome back,
Hello.
AJ.
Glad to be here.
Thank you for joining. And then we also have a new face, which is Rebecca Brodkey. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for joining. So, for everyone who maybe hasn't heard of these two guests, both of you have written novels in the gods and goddesses arena. I believe both of yours are invented mythologies, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So today we're going to talk about all of the things we love about these types of books and then share, of course, a lot of recommendations. And then we'll talk about why you love writing in that space as well, because I think that'll be a fun context for everyone also. Yeah. So maybe we just go and get started. So I would love to just hear your thoughts on why you both love books that have gods and goddesses and just like mythology in general in them.
Popcorn Rebecca.
Oh, wow.
No
Okay,
pressure.
so yeah, I I really love gods and goddesses. I kind of think of them as the same archetype as like if people really like human fairy stories, I think it's
Mhm.
similar, but I like how with gods and goddesses you can pull from like so many different mythologies. Like you're not limited to this specific mythology that creature like a fairy comes from or any other kind of magical creature. So I kind of think of them like that as a blank slate, but also like a personification of what it means to be human, like human flaws and like human dreams and things like that. So I think it's just like a vehicle for so many different things. And it's like the most versatile kind of like fantastical creature that you can play with as a writer. Um,
Hmm.
so that's what I
Yeah.
like about it.
Yeah,
Popcorn
I
AJ.
agree with a lot of that. Yeah, I think they're just more of everything. Um, Flaws and power and the consequences of their actions are larger, which is always
Mhm.
fun. I also think it's fun as a reader because people get so creative with their pantheons, and there's so many different ways that they can interact with your story and your characters and cause problems, which is a lot of fun. I also think it's just fun to be in such a different perspective. Like there is overlap between like the human condition and whatever's going on with these super powerful beings. Um, but they also like if they're immortal, that's a different perspective to play with, or they might be like really drawn away from society or really involved in a way that is very complicated, or maybe they don't like they feel like the pressure of worship. There's just so many cool things uh that you can do with it, and I think it's just a fun like additional sort of puzzle piece that you only really get to play with in fantasy.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that that's such a good point. Like as a reader, I was thinking about this because we just did an episode, AJ and I did an episode on Circe, which we will talk about in a little bit. That's probably one of my all-time favorite books. For everyone, if you haven't read it, it's Circe from the Odyssey, and she's a demigoddess, I think. But the cool thing for me for mythology, because I remember reading some mythology books when I was like really, really little. Like there are a lot of children's books that have that. I mean, obviously
Mm-hmm.
Percy Jackson is like a huge one. But then there were some random ones I read. But I think that for the mythologies that are in our world, it creates a level of accessibility that isn't there in completely like new fantasy worlds because you kind of already you've heard of Athena, you've heard of Zeus, maybe you've seen Hercules. And so you when we read these books like it I think it gives a new way for people to discover the fantasy genre
Hmm.
that is like a little less overwhelming than picking up something like, the fifth season
Yeah.
and diving into that world of
Yeah.
Brandon Sanderson. So I like that too, and we all have like a concept of gods, so having that be the magical being, like when you're talking about fairies, like I feel like everyone can have a different picture of what a fairy looks like because it could be, well, anyway, I won't go into all of those, but then if you think of like a god, like we all kind of have a similar image of a god, which is this all-powerful being or something like that.
I think it's also fun in with playing with the real world mythologies because it almost feels like they're so close to being real. Like maybe the world
Mhm.
just kind of forgot that magic was here, and if you just like remember and believe enough, it's all going to come back. I think there's something really cool about that.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. I that's so fun.
I think of myths as like the world's oldest stories, and like you you never have to go far to find something fascinating or something that can
Hmm.
be like reintroduced, in a new way. The idea that we had magic and we forgot. I think like that kind of speaks to like the belief element of the gods and goddesses in books is like back in the day you like truly believe these people are real, and it feels like, oh, we've made all this progress, that we have like science and all of these structures through which we understand the world, but like we've lost this connection to something like that, like something divine or something magical, that
Hmm.
I think you get to rediscover when you engage with these stories.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the books that I've read, the gods are worried about that, which AJ, you kind of started to imply when when you were chatting, like the idea of being worshipped and of people, making sacrifices to you. And so I had read a book once, it was a nonfiction book about like the evolution of God and belief and faith. And the idea that what we believe as humans tends to reflect who we are. And so that's why the Greek gods were so like chaotic because the world was like more chaotic. And I won't go in on a religious tangent here, but I I love the idea of the gods as like a reflection of being
Yeah.
human. Because every
Hmm.
time I read a book where whether the god's the main character or they're just like messing with the characters and kind of toxic. Like I always finish those books just feeling so grateful to be human and to be mortal because a lot of times
Hmm.
when you read them, you're like, oh, I don't want to be one of those gods. Like they seem
Yeah.
very unhappy.
That's
So
how I
yeah.
feel when I read like a vampire story where they're living for like 300 years. I'm like actually my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Um, but also, I think one of my favorite like real life examples of what you're talking about, like the gods reflect the people who believe in them, is like
Mhm.
Odin started as an agricultural deity. Like they prayed to
Mm.
him for farming and harvest, and then as the people became more warlike, Odin became more warlike. So
Mm.
then he
Oh,
became
I
the
didn't know
Odin
that.
that we know today. But yeah, like before they started raiding and like the Vikings became the Vikings that we know now, like they were like a much more agricultural society.
hmm. That's
Yeah.
so interesting. Like thinking of the gods evolving as well, because they
Yeah.
seem so fixed. But yeah, of course they would. Well, I guess not, of course, because a lot don't grow and change in different representations. But
Yeah.
that's so fascinating. Yeah, I had never heard that before.
In Norse mythology, another thing that was reflective of the time was the eternal struggle between the gods and the giants. So the
Mm.
gods were like what's the word? They were like a manifestation of humanity, and the giants were a manifestation of nature. Like there were frost giants, because nature in like Scandinavia was so intense to deal with, and so harsh to survive. So what's interesting is like in that mythology, like nature eventually pretty much wins. Like you have Ragnarok where the gods all are and everything's destroyed.
Mm.
But like if you look at other mythologies, you see a similar representation of nature and man, but like nature's not always winning. Like the Greek mythology, the Titans were similar to the giants. Like
Hmm.
they're always like battling, trying to battle the gods, but like they don't win in the same way
Hmm.
that they did in Scandinavia.
Even today, I feel like there's still that dynamic of like humans versus nature and like what's our role in this. Like thinking about like all of the like green initiatives and
Yeah.
everything that's happening and the recent fires that have happened in the past 5 years and stuff, like it almost feels like when you were saying earlier that we've become more detached from it, that now it's like coming back. Like now this is just my fantasy writer brain, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the guy, like there's gonna be another battle. It's like nature versus us. So,
Yeah,
but
truly.
yeah, that's so interesting. So, do you, in your books, before we dive into some of the other recommendations, do either of you play with nature as a god like that, or are yours more like human inspired?
Yeah, so the inspiration that I took for my book is I have two classes of deities. There are gods and titans. I wanted to call them giants. They were called giants in like early drafts, but I ended up going with titan. I wanted to emulate that same battle between nature and man. And I think I'm still kind of like playing with it and like unpacking what it means for nature and man to be fighting each other, because I think that, like you said, that's our reality now, and that's been our reality like since we began as a species. So I wanted to explore that in a fantasy world, where we can kind of like leave realism at the door. But yeah, I didn't just draw from Norse mythology. I drew from a lot of different like European mythologies, and then also like Mesoamerican mythology, to kind of make it feel as worldly as possible, like as big as our world feels.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I did want to emulate the nature versus man thing. So in the first book, they mostly meet titans, but they've met a few titans, and then they are going to slowly start meeting more gods and interacting with more gods as the story progresses. What about you, AJ?
Do you want to tell the people what your book is called real quick?
Oh, yeah, it's a mystery. You'll never you'll never be able to guess. I have it right here. So it's called Darker Than the Starless Night. Um, but yeah, it's
Oh, I like that cover too.
yeah.
Isn't it gorgeous?
And then wait, let me show you one more thing while I have the book here. So I have this map. And kind of like a foundational part of the world is that the world has been severed into two pieces. So there's like this piece of land that is where the main character starts that we know well. But then as you go this way, this kind of leads into a whole other half of the world. And you find out very early on in the book, like in the prologue, so I'm not giving anything away, but you find out that the world was actually severed in pieces because of this conflict between these two classes of deities. Part of the journey that the character is embarking on, my main character, Yam, through the course of the series, will be kind of like figuring out how to tackle this age old question of like, how do we unite into one piece again?
Mm-hmm. I love the idea of like there being consequences for the gods' battle that humans actually see, which is that our world is split. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, assuming your characters are human, I guess I don't know what
They
they
are
are. But
human. And then there's also these people that are called Numenborn that are they're kind of like an echo of a god. So they have powers, but like they're related to gods. So now I'm trying to expand kind of like the creature universe of the world.
Misho's
But
little
yeah,
bird friend can be a magic bird.
I'm not going to give anything
No
away, but
spoiled. Okay.
maybe. No spoilers.
can you repeat the name again? It was darker.
Oh,
What was
Darker Than the Starless Night.
Darker Than the Starless
Darker
Night by
Than the
Rebecca
Starless Night.
Brodkey.
Yes. Part of the Numenborn saga is the name of the series.
Ooh. I'll also link to it for everyone listening if you want to check it out. Because yeah, that sounds very fun. And I think for anyone who's like, well, what's it actually about? Because I believe yours it dealt with someone. In my mind, they're like a drug dealer.
Yeah,
Is that-
yeah. Yeah,
She's a chemist.
she doesn't deal the drugs, she just makes them. Yeah.
So like,
It's like a joke.
what's that one show? Gosh, now I can't remember what it's called. With the guy who he was a teacher and then
Oh, Breaking
Breaking
Bad.
Bad.
Yeah.
Breaking Bad is like legitimately a comp title for my
Oh
life.
my gosh. Okay, Breaking Bad meets
Yeah.
like the Odyssey or something in a fantasy
Yeah.
world.
I think when I originally like was thinking about comp titles, I didn't know any advice about picking comp titles. So I was like, it's Song of Achilles meets Peaky Blinders. And that was the comp title I gave people. But it's about the main character, Yam, is a chemist, and she works for this gang called the Stags in her home city, which is called Innisfell. And she is kind of just minding her own business until she stumbles onto this like big world changing conspiracy.
Mhm.
The conspiracy is actually has to do with the separation of these two worlds and the war that started that to begin with. So she finds out this conspiracy, and then she's like faced with the age old quandary of should I just do nothing and keep my life as it is, or should I do the right thing and do something about it? But I was like,
Mhm.
no, I want to start with someone who's already a bad person. No, thank you. We're going to start morally gray. She makes drugs.
Well, I feel like that's like very aligned with mythology too, because if you think about a lot of the heroes, like they have to do a lot of like they're just like
Questionable
questionable
things.
people. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
for
especially
sure.
by today's moral standards. Like,
Mhm.
For sure.
you know, if your character was in the Greek mythology world, like maybe that would be admirable. She would just be like a pharmacist. And
Yeah.
but today we're like, oh no, like this is we have such different like moral lines, you know? And
People are
yeah,
so
that sounds so
strict these
fun.
days. You're like, you just can't, can't do things
Well,
like you used
and
to.
everybody has a different like line of like what you can do for the greater good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like how far I love books like that where it's like, well, how far are you gonna go? To
Yeah.
like at what point is it like the ends justify the means kind of thing or like
Yeah.
one person when it's like one person should one person die versus like the whole
Five.
society. Those are like
The
such
trolley
hard questions.
problem. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
But so AJ, your world is I believe
Less
much
nature
more
inspired. Yeah.
yeah, much more invented.
Yeah, much more human centric, I think. I have some unpublished stuff that's like the planet is sentient and it's trying to get rid of the people on it with natural disasters, which I would love to return
Publish
Yeah.
it.
to. But no, so I don't have my book with me. What am I doing?
I actually have
Um,
it.
oh heck yeah. So my book's called Oblivion's Hymn. I think I see a green spine back there. I don't know if that's mine.
This is it.
Yay.
Ooh. I
Yeah.
love that cover so much.
I do too. I can't wait for the second one to be printed in my hands. But anyway, yes, Oblivion's Hymn. I made the Pantheon specifically to be a problem for my main characters. So in thinking about like what I wanted them to be gods of, a big theme of my book is like figuring out your life and feeling like you should have hit certain milestones already, and when you haven't, how that like affects your psychology and like whether like how you figure out how to move forward from there.
Hmm.
And so the all of the gods started out as like things that have a defined beginning and an end, um because it was supposed to be like the lesson that you learn through the book is like corny as it is, it's about the journey and there is really no end point, you just find a new path. um and so to press my character's buttons, I kind of was trying to reinforce the idea that no, there are actually like defined points along your life, where like you should have done this by this point, and if you haven't, like you've kind of wasted your time. So Oblivion is one of the gods, and he's a god specifically of endings. So kind of god of death and night, and void and all that stuff. But there's also Harvest, who's like goddess of seasons, and those, although maybe less now than they used to, sort of have a defined beginning and end. Or like thinking about like crops being planted and then harvested. But yeah, that was the general idea behind them. So they are very flawed and very human but skewed, um, in that they've taken on a lot of this ideology as well, in that like they were created to serve a specific function.
Mm-hmm.
And when they don't perform that function, um, or when they start to maybe chafe against those restraints, what happens? So that's something I explore
Mm-hmm.
in my series as well. And the second book has a POV little arc from one of the gods, which I'm very excited
Ooh,
for
I
people
love,
to
yeah.
read.
I love getting into like the head of a god. It's so, because sometimes it feels so different,
Mm-hmm.
especially, are your gods immortal or are they,
They are.
yeah.
They are also not the biggest fish in the sea, which has been really fun to play with. So even though they are like so powerful, they do have limitations, and they do have people sort of like watching them and seeing if they're doing the right thing and chastising them when they don't.
Hmm. Okay, I like the idea of a
Like
god
a mother
being
would.
chastised.
Mm-hmm.
I love about AJ's mythology, like I love how she's kind of thought through all the connections between all of the creatures. And then,
Mhm.
not to spoil anything, in book two, you meet more things that kind of come from the cosmos, but like AJ understands how everything connects to itself. And it's kind of like one ecosystem that it's very like intuitive to tap into.
Mhm.
Thank
And
you.
I love that.
Yeah, I really enjoy that part of world building. And I'm not a religious person, but like pantheons are one of the first things that I like to create because they affect the magic so much, and that's
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
one of my favorite parts of fantasy. Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
having it all interconnected is very fun for me.
I'm curious if there's because we have a list of books that we were going to talk about, and I haven't read a ton of invented mythologies. Are any of these books, is there anything that would kind of compare like that kind of world building aspect for someone who's like trying to like imagine how your book feels reading it? Are there any with that kind of like pantheon? And it's fine if not,
Mm-hmm.
but I was just
Mm.
like thinking like, okay, I have Breaking Bad with Norse mythology. I'm like,
Mm.
what would yours, is there anything comparable for yours?
Oh, that's a great question. It's funny because as I was writing these down and like reminding myself of what the plots were, a lot of these are like the gods had a war and it destroyed a lot of things, and now worshiping gods has been banned. That was like a very common theme in a lot of these. Um,
Oh, okay. I haven't read like most of the books on this list.
yeah, I think the closest would probably, and these aren't even really gods, but the Yaksa in the Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. You learn over the course of the series that they are like these cosmic beings from beyond the stars, and the whole magic system, like around them, is that you have to hollow out parts of yourself to make room for them and their magic. So you're like losing
Oh.
bits of who you are the more powerful you get, which is kind of comparable, I think, to like the bargains, that
Mm.
have to be made in my world. So all magic comes with a price, in divine songs, and I think oftentimes the gods take more than they give. So
Because they're gods. I feel like
yeah,
that's what they do. Yeah.
Yeah, those are rascals.
yeah.
Yeah, it sounds,
It's just how they were raised. It's not their fault.
Yeah, it's not their fault. I blame the mothers.
Hmm.
I feel like every time I do one of these, I leave with like 50 books to read. And I literally have, AJ, I have your book since the conference we did. And so I'm like, I need to read that one. Now I have Rebecca's book. And now I have literally everything. I haven't even read all of the books on the list, but I'm like, now I have all of these. It's like,
This is the problem with doing a book rag podcast.
It's
yeah.
it's tough.
It's yeah, it's so fun. So one thing that I have seen happen more recently is I've read two books back to back, and I don't know if this is like a new trend. I'm curious if either of you have seen anything like this, but I've read multiple books. So one was I'm halfway through it now, which is Nightshade and Oak by Molly O'Neill, and Molly wrote Green Teeth,
Mhm.
which I love that book. And then The Many Deaths of Layla Starr by Ram V, which is a graphic novel. And
Mhm.
both of these have a goddess. They're both goddesses who essentially something happens and then they're mortal. And so they have to learn how to exist as a mortal instead of
Mm.
being this like immortal being, which is really cool. And I hadn't really read anything like this before where like the god loses their powers effectively and has to exist as a human. So I don't know if that's just like a new trend or if I have just missed all of the books because I have not read all of the books. Uh, but I think that
Mm.
that's really fun because you're still in the god's point of view, but instead of getting to experience like what it's like to be immortal, you get to kind of be like, yeah, being a mortal sucks because you have aches and pains and you have all this stuff. And why are you guys so mean to us, gods? Like, so it's
Yeah.
like a fun, different perspective. But I don't
Mm.
know if you'd read anything like that or if you'd seen anything else like that. These are the only two that I've encountered where this happened. So
I
just
feel like
wanted
there's kind of like a subplot in Exodus's chorus that's like a little bit similar to that
Yeah.
without saying more. I
that's your
think it's
second book? Yeah.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think it's interesting.
Interesting.
Like I think people are drawn to a story like that because it it just forces a character to reckon with what it means to be human.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly what I was
Um,
gonna say. Yeah.
I also really like, and this might be something that I want to explore. It's similar to like I think the vampire fantasy of like you look at the gods or like a vampire, for example, as this like all powerful creature, can live forever, has seemingly like an infinite well of power. But I think at the end of the day, when you have a character like that, it gives the human character an opportunity to discover why they're grateful to be human. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my favorite example that is I came upon recently of this, and it's not recent for the world because these books have been out since like starting in the late 90s, but the His Dark Materials trilogy
Yeah.
Mm.
is like you have, which is it kind of plays on like the Judeo-Christian mythology a bit, but to not totally spoil everything, you have angels basically that you learn in later books, are what has been kind of like communicating from the ether. And towards the end of the trilogy, after the characters have gone through like all of these incredible adventures, the two main characters who are these two, it's kids' books, so the characters are like 13 or 14, and the the boy has the like wherewithal to realize like these angels are jealous of us because they can't feel anything. Like they're made of
Mm.
dust. And so they can't feel anything. They live forever. I think like when you're faced with a being like that, you can it gives you a chance to like examine like why am I glad that I don't live forever, that I
Mm-hmm.
don't have infinite power. So I think that it's like a similar kind of thing, having a god become a human and realize like this is what it means to be human. This is why being human is valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is what you're missing with your
Godliness.
immortality and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been forever since I read those books, which the first one,
Yeah.
for anyone who hasn't read it, the first one's The Golden Compass. It's Philip Pullman, I think, is the
Hmm.
author.
Yeah. Okay. And
Yeah.
actually, I learned that it's not the Golden Compass in England. Like in England, the title is Northern Lights. And I was like, why did they change
What?
it?
That's
Yeah.
very
That's so
different.
weird.
Because like it's about like her using the alethiometer, which is never actually called a compass in the book.
So are the rest of the ones because it's all like the
The
objects?
rest of them are the same. It's
That's
really
so
strange.
strange. Mm.
I actually got a copy in Australia that has Northern Lights on it because I
Huh.
wanted proof that it exists.
That's so interesting. It's been a long time since I read those books. I remember reading them, I think, in high school or something, and it just like blew my mind. But talking about like the like realizing that the gods are jealous and that like they can't like experience humanity. That's something that came up when we were talking about Circe, which I feel like is a theme in Greek mythology. I mean, depending on the the version, you know, but the gods are playing with the humans because they're bored and because they
Hmm.
Hmm.
honestly they just seem sad and depressed. Like hearing a lot of these stories, they're just like trying to feel something. So it's like, well, I'm gonna go do these like truly awful things to humans, a lot of times to women, just to like, you know, experience something. And then, and part of the reason why I love Circe, which again is one of my all-time favorite books, is that we get to see her learn. She's always like, she always loves humans kind of from the beginning, and
Hmm.
then we get to see like that evolution um and like the rejection of the gods. And I think it's really beautiful. And oh, I just love like gods and mythology books. It's so, I always
Yeah.
just feel so happy to be alive. Okay, so we talked about the His Dark Materials trilogy. Are there any other, before we go into more of the invented mythologies, are there any others in the real world for people who are like, well, I want mythology, but I'm kind of scared for a whole new set of gods? That feels very
Mm.
overwhelming. Are there any others, you know, inspired by our real world mythologies that you would recommend for people?
I did want to talk about how I think books about mythology are like a really interesting way to engage with your own heritage or like the heritage of other
Mm.
people. Obviously, you can read like a contemporary fiction novel or a historical fiction novel to like learn about a different culture, but I think it's a really engaging way to learn, especially about your own culture's beliefs that you
Mm,
might not be as familiar with. And the reason I bring that up is because the one example from like an existing mythology I put on there is it's this book called Night Owls, and it's about it's based on like Ashkenazi Jewish folklore. And I read that, and what was so affirming reading it was like realizing that there's all this stuff that I've vaguely heard of, but like have never been able to engage with in this way.
hmm.
And these stories that like maybe my family has not passed down, but like other families have. And to be able to learn that is really fascinating. And I'm sure people feel the same way when they read like Mexican folklore or Celtic folklore, and it's just like a really special way, I think, to learn about your own people and your own history.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's kind of like instead of feeling like you have to go back and read the like primary text of whatever religion it was, you can read this more palatable book
Yeah.
and like
Well,
see if you like it and then want
yeah.
to explore it
But
further.
a lot
Yeah.
of these things are not captured in one place. I mean, like
Yeah.
that, for example, it's based on some things in various kind of like obscure places, but also some of it's just been passed down orally. So you get to learn about the god and read that person's interpretation. And the alternative might be, you know, there's not much there. Like there's a really old codex, or there was something written by like
Yeah.
a conquistador that's like, or there's just oral tradition passed down, so
Hmm.
Yeah. I also think it's cool, like, to live in the story with that mythology and like feel as though you are interacting with those gods and like pieces of that history, as opposed to just like, I don't know, reading a sort of more like textbooky kind of
Yeah.
like history
mm-hmm.
of things. That's one of the reasons I love fantasy. Um, that
Yeah,
you
like
just get to like
feeling like they're
live.
alive. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I haven't read City of Brass or Gods of Jade and Shadow, both of which are on my list. Are the gods like really in it in those books, or are they?
So
Yeah.
yes to Gods of Jade and Shadow. She literally, the main character, like accidentally essentially opens Pandora's box and like lets the god of death out of his prison. And
Mm,
she has to escort him uh back to his home in the underworld, where I think his brother has like usurped his throne. So there's more sort of intrigue to deal with the gods in that as well. And
okay.
that's based on Mayan gods. Less so in the City of Brass. So it technically like takes place in the real world. Like the story starts in Cairo,
Hmm.
um, and then they travel to a magical city which is still in the real world, but kind of hidden from normal people. That's all inhabited by genies of like different like elements, and they're sort of separated into tribes, and they all have different like powers and stuff. And it
Ooh, okay.
feels, yeah, so I think S.A. Chakraborty is like a scholar of like 18th century um like Egypt in that area. So she puts a lot of history into her stories, and that is reflected in like the politics, even in the magical world, uh,
Okay.
which is kind of cool. So it's not gods exactly, but they are like super powerful people, and they're um, the things that they do definitely do have like effects on the mortal world. So
Mm-hmm.
that's probably one of my favorite book series of all time.
I want to read it because I've read The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi, but yeah, that's the only one of her books that I've read. And in that, there's kind of, I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, there's like someone who's kind of almost feels like a demigod.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's kind of what I'm envisioning for this. So yeah, I want to read City of Brass so bad. That's like pretty high on my list. Every time I hear about it, I'm just like a little more for like why I should read it. And I feel like Egypt, like a hidden city, that it just like old world Egypt, like I
Mm-hmm.
could believe that there is like a magical city just hidden somewhere. And um,
Is it like is it kind of like in Feel Alone, similar to The Mummy at all? Like
that's what I
in
was
terms of
envisioning.
being in Cairo? I'm sure it's much less campy, but
um,
It's a
it's
little older,
very,
I think.
yeah,
it's
it's
like in
like
the
during the Ottoman
1800s.
Empire, I think,
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah.
very way more steeped in the actual culture of the place.
Yeah, I feel like the mummy's very colonial. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
yeah.
like What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez
Mm,
is
I haven't read that, but
similar.
I
Like
haven't read
I
either.
think I think it's in Cairo, but it's a little bit later.
I've heard really good things about that though. Yeah, see,
Yeah.
this wasn't even on the list, and now I have yeah another thing
Yeah.
to read. Um, yeah, I love what you were saying, AJ, about like being able to feel like those gods are alive and like having it just feel so immersive with those kinds of books. But then on the flip side, I feel like the invented mythologies give more room to kind of explore just like different kinds of gods that maybe we humans haven't invented. So I wrote down the Inheritance trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. The first book I believe is The 100,000 Kingdoms. Have either of you read this book or
I
this series?
actually have not.
I haven't read it either, but I had someone recommend it to me. It's supposed to be really good and like plays with gods a lot. So I just wanted to mention that um, because I mean, N.K. Jemisin is just like so great at world building.
Yeah.
But
I've
are
read her other
there,
stuff, but I don't think those are really God centric at all.
yeah. So yeah, so now I have to read that one. But for the others here, yeah, I'm just curious, like, because I have not read, like, I'm realizing I haven't really read anything that has a different world of gods, or it has escaped my mind, if I have. So, are there any that you would say is a good like entry point for someone who's like, "Ooh, I want to like read an invented mythology." Of course, your books. So once they finish those, um, any others that you would,
I
yeah,
have
recommend?
one.
Okay.
I'm still waiting for AJ to read this, but The Raven Scholar is like
It's on my shelf.
it's so good. Okay, so I think The Raven Scholar is fascinating because it doesn't have human gods. It has these like animal archetypes that are the
Mm.
guardians. So there's eight guardians, and the world building is just like immaculate. And it's also fascinating because as the story goes on, I don't want to give too much, but you do get to know like some of these guardians a bit better, and they kind of have like a thousand faces because the idea is like this is every single fox that's ever been, ever is, and ever will
Mm.
be. So you interact with like different kind of like manifestations of this guardian. But it's really fascinating. And then yeah, it's just an incredible epic fantasy. It's a bit of an undertaking. It's like 600 pages, but I just flew through it. I feel like I never once was like checking the clock, being like, is this
Yeah.
taking so long, or the pacing's kind of like I'm struggling with it. It really like earned every single page. And the mythology was just like it was so fascinating. It's kind of hard to place. And then I talked to someone and I was like, because I haven't met that many people who read it, and I was like, I just need someone to hear me when I say that the main two characters are really giving me Elphaba and Fiero. And
Mm.
I said that, and she was like, "Oh my God!" And I was like, "Yes," especially because of like the animals, like in
Oh, now I
Wicked.
really need to read it. Dang.
Yeah, so I feel like it's a really fun dynamic between the two characters, and it's like a fascinating world. It's like it feels a bit Eastern because there are temples to these gods, and there's kind of like people who live like monks, but it doesn't feel like too grounded in any one place. It really takes from a lot of different places, and it's like really feels like very original. I highly recommend. I think it's also a nice start because you can kind of go into it if you read fantasy. Like I wouldn't start like someone who's new to fantasy on it, but like if you read fantasy, you can go in kind of like a clean slate and just experience like a real feat of world building and mythology, like a totally created mythology.
Mm. Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds good. You said it's The Raven
The
Scholar?
Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. The next
Okay.
book doesn't come out until it comes out next year, but it feels like too far away.
Well, that's a good sign then. You're like, I want to read this right now. So,
For my Rex to start with, I think I'm gonna say God Killer by Hannah
Mhm.
Kaner. Just because uh I think it's such an interesting way to do gods. So this is one of the examples where there was a war between many of the factions, and so they were like, no more of these. Um, but there is like a god for pretty much everything, all the way from these like big like fire cult worship gods to one of the main characters has a god of white lies that like hangs out with her, and he's just like, I forget exactly what the description of him is, but he's basically like a little like hamster with like wings and antlers, I'm pretty sure.
oh my
But it's like
God.
very small and very cute, but he gets bigger. I think the more lies you tell.
Mm.
Um so, and they also like travel through this city where all of these gods have like faded because no one is worshiping them anymore, but they can't die. They're just these like shades essentially sort of populating this city. Um
Oh, I
I
like
think
that.
that's really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Um
love the idea of like what happens to the gods once they're no longer believed, which I think kind of
yeah.
happens in
Yeah.
American Gods
Yeah.
by
That
Neil Gaiman.
that's
Yeah.
been on the tip of my tongue, but I'm like, I don't want to give this guy any
Yeah.
press. But that's like exactly the premise of American Gods.
Yeah, I did think about that when I said out loud. But yeah, that is kind of the premise of that book. But I would say don't go buy a copy of that. Maybe
Yeah.
get it from the
Yeah.
Read God
library if
Killer
you're gonna
instead.
read it.
Read God Killer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I haven't actually finished that. It's a trilogy that's complete now, I believe. I need to read the rest of it.
I know Marianne, if she's listening to this, is like, thank you for saying that that it's complete.
Yeah, and they're not they're pretty like I don't know. I read a lot of like doorstop epic fantasy, and these are like
Yeah,
decently
they're not
like
long.
normal length, yeah. So that, and I think probably the Sunbearer Trials by Aidan Thomas,
Mm.
which is a duology. It is YA, but it's very digestible world building. The gods have like a hierarchy. So you've got like the golds, who are the super powerful ones, and then the jades, who are less, and then the obsidian gods are the evil ones.
Mm.
And
Classic.
yeah, of course. The whole society is built around like worship of the sun god because it protects them from the obsidians. And so they have this trial every however many years, I forget, to like replenish the sun god's power, which takes a sacrifice. And whoever is like the winner of the trials gets the honor of like replenishing the power, and the loser is the one that gets sacrificed. It's kind of brutal, but it is
Oh my
inspired
God.
by like
It sounds very
um
Greek mythology-y.
yeah.
Like,
Well, very, I think yeah, like Mexican uh mythology inspired, I think. But yeah, I mean
yeah.
with the sacrifice and stuff, it is, I won't spoil the story, but very, very cool mythology. And the main characters are demigods, so they are children of the gods. So they
Oh
all
my
have
gosh,
like
even worse.
powers and stuff. Yeah, I know it's it's a little bit messed up explaining it like this, but it's a really good book. Um, and I that's another one I need to finish. Celestial Monsters, I think, is the second one.
What's These Vengeful Gods? I feel like I've heard of this one.
That's another YA sort of dystopian thing. So uh all of the children and like descendants of the god of death, or most of them, were wiped out, and the ones that remain are in hiding.
Mm.
Um, and there's like a competition every year to win the favor of the remaining gods. It's very there's a lot of these themes in YA. And the main character is a death child, and their uncles have been keeping them hidden, and they get arrested for doing that. And so they decide to put themselves in grave danger by entering this competition in hope that they can ask the gods to release their uncles. So it's, I think, also tends to be with like competition with other children of the gods because they have like power and advantages over the
Hmm.
normies. And also I think it takes like a lot of money to participate. It's sort of, it's very Hunger Gamesy, and like lots of social stratification and stuff. um Also quite good. I enjoyed that one very much.
One other one I could throw in there as being very accessible is Serpent in the Wings of Night. It's, have you guys read it?
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
It's very well written, of course, and also I think like the you learn about the mythology kind of like in a structure like of a typical romantasy book that I think is very accessible for people that are used to reading romantasy and maybe want to like dip their toes into more like world building heavy spaces. So I think like my favorite piece of world building there that's related to the mythology is like Carissa Broadbent even thought about like how do people curse and how is this related to the gods? So there's like all these
Mm.
different gods, and one of them is named Ix, which is just a great name. And so the main male character, when he curses, he's like Ix's tits. That's like his curse. And I just thought that was so funny and like such a great detail, that you're like in this world, you don't just say like you don't just drop an F bomb. Like they have their own kind of like version of curses that goes back to like their beliefs. Um, so I think that one's really good.
Mm.
I love the name Ix for a god. That's
Yeah,
I don't even think the god
is it
of
IX or
IX,
okay.
just IX.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
In my
like that.
mind it was ICKS, and I was like, it's like the god of like gross things. And
That's funny. No, I don't. I read it a long time ago and I don't remember like what that one was a god of, but also like we talked about a lot of like trials books, and that book also has trials. You're competing for a wish from a god,
Mm.
like one wish.
yeah, it's interesting how many, even thinking about like Greek mythology and some of the mythologies that we all have heard of, like how many of them have these sort of trials and competitions, and that's the way to like win the favor of the gods, is to
Yeah.
defeat, the seven-headed
Mm.
thing, or like steal this from someone else. Like they love like their little games.
Yeah. I think
They
that goes back
do.
to like one of the lines from Cersei that we talked about last week, that it, in order to catch the gods' attention, you have to be like meteoric because
Yeah.
their
Mm,
lives are so brief in comparison to those of gods. And I feel like that's essentially what the trials are, is to like show how close to the gods you can get despite being mortal.
Mm, that's
yeah.
true. Yeah.
And that's also how you like become a god by like
Oh, like
proving
proving it.
yourself
Yeah.
in a lot of those stories. It's like you kind of like believe and prove that you are God, and then that's how you become one.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But thinking back to the beginning, it's like, why would anyone want to become a god?
I know, I know.
That's the
I think
wrong
it's
choice.
interesting, yeah, because it kind of speaks to, I mean, back in the day, obviously they like idolized the gods, but like it kind of gives you a view into like the author's worldview and like what they're trying to tell, because maybe someone's telling a story where gods are like an analog for someone who's like self-actualized. So you
Hmm.
actually do want to become a god. But like maybe someone's telling another story about how you want to appreciate things about being human.
Hmm.
Um, it's like interesting ways to interpret like each author's vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a book rec, but I'm a huge D&D nerd for anyone who doesn't know. And I have watched all of Critical Role. And the reveal of there's the only human in existence who has ever ascended to godhood. She's called the Raven Queen. She's essentially the person who like ferries souls from life into death.
Mm.
And many people have tried to replicate her ritual, and nobody has been able to figure it out. It always goes catastrophically wrong. um, and they find out this like whole setup. It gets set up in like the very first campaign, and at the end of like literally 10 years of lore and characters acting out, we finally find out like what she did to become a god. And it was actually like a kind of selfless action to take the place of someone who was tired of being a god,
Mm.
which
Mm.
I think was so cool. And I don't recall another story that I've read that does that.
Yeah.
That is really cool. Yeah, like it's like almost like sacrificing yourself for the god to be free from there.
Yeah, and it was
Yeah.
like
Mm.
her love for him was like the essential part of the ritual that everyone else has been missing because they've all been
Mm.
doing it for power.
I
Ooh,
love
I like that.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is very reflective of Matt Mercer's worldview, I think. So that ties back to what you were saying.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel like there are so many to dive into. I know we didn't get to everything on this list, but there are just so many different mythologies and like real world, not real world, gods getting power, people becoming gods, gods becoming people. It's just like all over the place. I love it. I feel like there's so much to explore here. Um, so for anyone who wants to read your books or wants to follow you because they love the way that you were talking about everything, where can people find you? Rebecca, you want to go
Um,
first? Oh,
oh,
okay.
AJ, you go.
so yeah, I am Cozy Writing Dragon on Instagram. That is mostly where I hang out social media wise. And if you follow me on there, or ajpeterson.com, I've got all my links to all the places you can find my book. And if you read the first one and really like it, my advanced reader copy applications are open for book two.
Yay. And so for a refresher for anyone who's like, which one was this in the 30 books we just talked about?
Oh yeah.
So yours is the one where it's Oblivion is the god. And yeah, I don't think you said that it relates to music when we were talking about this earlier, but
Yeah, one of my main characters is a bard. So
yeah.
there's a lot of themes about like being an artist and how hard that can be for many different reasons. But yeah, Oblivion's hymn, and then book two is called Exodus's Chorus.
And you're also on Substack because I follow you on Substack.
Yes. And I always forget what I have called my Substack, but I think if you search AJ Peterson, there's a little dragon in the image.
Yeah.
It should be pretty easy to find.
Yeah. Awesome. And then Rebecca, where can everyone find you?
It's ajpeterson.substack.com.
Oh, well, all
I just
right.
checked.
Great. It was
Um,
super fancy.
I checked because I also checked my Substack URL before this started. I'm Rebecca Brodkey. I'm on Instagram, Rebecca Brodkey Books. My book is called Darker Than the Starless Night. Um, it is book one in an uncompleted planned four-book series, hoping to be publishing the second book next year.
And this is the
And
one that is Breaking Bad meets Norse
yeah,
mythology.
Yeah. Or you can think of it as like Song of Achilles meets Peaky Blinders. It's also I've used God Killer as a comp title too, which we talked about earlier. So
Okay.
it's all you need to know is it's about a morally gray chemist who tries to save the world. Um, and yeah, I'm on Substack, RebeccaBrodkey.substack.com. Books are on Amazon. I just send people to Amazon because right now both my ebooks are like very discounted, so that's the easiest way to get them. And then on my Instagram, I have a link tree of like all the other places if you prefer to buy like Barnes and Noble or bookshop.org or indie bookseller. So yeah,
Awesome. Well,
thanks
thank you
for
both
having
for,
me.
yeah, thank you for coming. This was so, I mean, truly, like, I just like am adding all of these to my list, and it's just so, it's the best problem to have all of these
Truly.
amazing recommendations and like any vibe. I'm like, okay, I know exactly the book to read. And
Yeah,
yeah, your perspectives, both as authors and then as readers of, these types of books, it was just very fun to talk to you about them. So thank you for joining.
yeah,
And
thank
for
you.
everyone listening, if you don't already, make sure you subscribe to the podcast to be notified of future updates. And so thank you for joining. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next time.